Treble crochet produces a very tall, very lacy fabric. A treble crochet, because it's so tall, you need to skip the first 4 chains of your foundation chain and then work your first stitch into the 5th chain from the hook. Make sure you don't count that loop that's on the hook as a chain. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the stitch we will work into. With treble crochet, you're going to yarn over twice before you insert your hook into that stitch and draw up a loop. You should now have 4 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over, draw through the first 2 loops, yarn over, draw through the next 2 loops, and then yarn over and draw through the last 2 loops. You can see that treble crochet is very tall and there's a lot of space in between each stitch. So again, we're going to yarn over twice, insert the hook into the stitch and draw up a loop, yarn over, draw through the first 2, yarn over, draw through the next 2, yarn over, draw through the last 2. This is a stitch I don't come across as often as the single, half double, or double crochet stitches, just because it really produces a very lacy look. So it doesn't have as much of an application as the others do because the fabric is not going to be as dense. But it is great for summer and spring looks, working with a cotton yarn or something like that, because you're producing a nice airy fabric. So again, yarn over twice, insert your hook into the stitch and draw up a loop, yarn over and draw through the first 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, draw through the second 2, yarn over, draw through the last 2. And we're just going to work all the way down this foundation chain, and then I will show you how to work the turning chain and the second and following rows of treble crochet. Okay, so treble crochet requires a turning chain of 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4. Before you're turning your work to go back down the other side for the second row. In treble crochet, as in double crochet, you want to skip that first stitch of the next row and work into the second stitch as your first stitch of the row. So we will yarn over twice, go into that second stitch, yarn over, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, the next 2, and the last 2. As you can see, even though we skipped that stitch and created some extra space, because the treble crochet stitches are so far apart already, that additional hole really doesn't make much of a difference. So continuing on down this row, yarn over twice, insert into the stitch, draw up a loop, through the first 2, next 2, last 2. I'm just going to work down this row and show you how to work the last stitch of your treble crochet row, which needs to be worked into the turning chain of the row below. Because we skipped a stitch at the beginning of this row, you need to add a stitch at the end in order to maintain the same stitch count for each row. Otherwise, we would be decreasing by 1 stitch on each row and we would end up with a triangle. Okay. So now we need to work into this turning chain for our last stitch. And you can see, because we skipped that first stitch, the sides of our work are nice and flat and even. If we would have worked into that first stitch, all of our turning chains would be scalloping up the sides like this, and we would have more of a curvy, scallopy edge than the nice flat one that is created by skipping that first stitch, which then pulls these turning chains over slightly. And there you have the treble crochet.